Hunting for Answers is a production of the Black Effect Podcast Network and iHeartRadio. Welcome to Hunting for Answers, a true crime podcast. I'm your host, Hunter, and today we're diving into the questions that don't just shape how cases are handled. They shape who gets seen and who ultimately gets justice. Every year, thousands of people go missing in America. But not every story makes the news. So, what determines which cases get traction and which cases go cold? How do families keep pushing when police stop calling? And what role can journalists, storytellers, and communities play in shifting that dynamic? Today we're speaking with two sisters who refuse to accept the disparities in how missing persons cases are handled. Founders of the Black and Missing Foundation, Natalie and Derrica Wilson, as well as Philip Lewis, president of the Washington Association of Black Journalists. The Black and Missing Foundation was born from a troubling reality. Some missing person stories capture the nation, while others barely receive a mention.
There was a young lady by the name of Tamika Houston who went missing from Derrica's hometown of Spartanburg, South Carolina. And we read how her aunt, who's in media relations like I am, really struggled to get national media coverage around her beautiful niece. And, a year later, when Tamika disappeared, Natalie Holloway vanished. And just saying her name alone, everyone knows her story. And Rebecca reached out to those same reporters, same networks, same programs. And guess what? She was met with silence.
That silence, that difference in urgency, became the spark. Natalie and Derrica decided they wanted to take action.
We were really disheartened by that. So Derrica and I did some research, and at the time we found that 30% of all persons missing were of color. And we said, let's do something about this, right? My background is media relations, Derrica's is law enforcement, and those are the two critical professions needed to find and bring our missing home.
That action, made nearly 20 years ago, has since helped resolve over 500 cases across the country. And yet, as Natalie points out, the numbers have only grown.
If you fast forward to today, 40% of all persons missing are of color. And what we want to do is ensure that they are household names too.
To understand why so many families never see their loved ones again, you have to look at how cases are classified, because the language used in those first 24 hours can determine everything that follows.
Oftentimes when children disappear, they're classified as runaways. Runaways do not receive an Amber Alert because it does not meet the criteria. And it doesn't seem as if there's an urgency in trying to find and bring them home. When it comes to our adults, they like to oftentimes associate their disappearance with some sort of criminal activity. So it really dehumanized and desensitized the fact that these are valuable members of our community.
That lack of urgency can be fatal. In some states, families are still told to wait 24 hours before filing a missing persons report, even though research shows those first hours are the most critical.
We have, encountered families on countless times that have gone to law enforcement, and sadly, law enforcement didn't take the police report. And so by them not taking the police report, it's not going to even get to the media because they were not taking the case seriously in the first place.
And when it comes to media coverage, Natalie says the barriers extend far beyond the newsroom.
What we're also seeing is that race, economic status and education, they play a role in the barriers to law enforcement acting or media coverage. And when we started the organization And even to today, we have conversations with reporters, people that are reporting on the news and newsrooms in general. And what we're finding is that there are no policies or procedures in place when it comes to who gets the coverage. So if all of us call, who makes that decision? It's a middle-aged white man. And his focus is on sponsorship or advertising dollars. And I get that, right? We get that. But there's also a human element to these individuals that are missing.
For the Wilsons, changing the narrative means fighting stereotypes, especially those that strip Black victims of their innocence or their humanity.
When a young African American girl is missing, she is not seen as a victim. She's adultified. And it's the thought that she's getting what she deserves, or she's from that, sector of society. And again, it's changing that narrative.
And as debates over diversity in media and policing continue, Natalie says this isn't a political issue. It's a human one.
Diversity does matter. I know that there's an attack on DEI, but this is not a DEI matter. This is a human rights issue where 40% of the missing population are people of color, and that's reported missing. We believe the numbers are much higher.
For Derrica, she says what determines whether someone is searched for or forgotten often comes down to discretion.
We have to take away the discretion. Last year, we released our best practice guide for law enforcement for missing persons investigations, and we need holistic policies in how these cases are handled. It shouldn't be based on race, gender, and zip code. It needs to be in black and white, the procedures. So regardless of anyone's race, gender, and zip code, the cases are handled in the same manner with the same urgency and the same resources.
Every statistic hides a story. A mother who still searches the neighborhood looking for a clue. A sibling who checks their phone every morning hoping for an update. Natalie and Derrica have gotten to know those families personally. They've helped so many navigate the unthinkable.
So we help them from A through Z. It's a very holistic approach. We ensure that a police report is on file. And once we have all of the information, including a picture, we upload that information to our database and we share it on social media. We also share it with local and national media outlets and our media partners. And we have boots on the ground too, distributing flyers because we believe that someone knows something.
But in an age of online scams and misinformation, even searching can be dangerous.
We remove the onus from the families by putting our information and law enforcement's information on the flyer, because we have been finding that families are being scammed and being taken advantage of.
And just to add to what Natalie stated, the families love that aspect as well as law enforcement because there is a lack of trust when it comes to the Black and brown community. There are many times that we get information and we have to share it with law enforcement because community members just don't find the trust in law enforcement. We're constantly working with our law enforcement partners. I know Natalie will talk about our partners with the media, but we're constantly working with them to strengthen that relationship because we know that there is staffing issues and staffing shortages. And so for us to be able to utilize our platform, our connection with the community and the families that we're serving, it's helping them in the long run with getting these cases, resolved.
March 2014. An 8-year-old girl named Relisha Rudd vanishes from a D.C. shelter where her family had been staying. Till this day, her disappearance remains one of the most haunting child cases in recent memory.
She was 8 years old when she disappeared in March 2014. And this month, in October 29th, she will be turning 20 years old. Can you believe that?
For the Wilsons, Relisha's case embodies everything the foundation fights against, a truth they explore in their new docuseries, The Vanishing of Relisha Rudd, a cold case reexamined.
We have created a short docuseries that we are releasing on Relisha's birthday on our YouTube channel with never before seen interviews with law enforcement, with media who covered it, and with some of her family members. So we're hoping that, your viewers will subscribe to our YouTube channel, which is BAMFIORG, to just take a look at the new information that's out there, and they can hold the key to help find and bring her home, or at least get justice for what happened to Relisha.
We look at Relisha's case. She was very vulnerable. Her and her family, they lived in a homeless shelter, and, just the day to day. And sometimes we as people, we're planning, our strategic plan is for the next 6 months, for the next year. And some are just in survivor mode. And sadly, those individuals are vulnerable and they become targets of those that have ill will against them. We also noticed that in Relisha's particular case, there were so many systems that failed her, by her not showing up for school, or even the janitor who worked at the homeless shelter. He should not have been around kids.
That janitor, later identified as Khalil Tatum, took his own life just days after Relisha disappeared, leaving behind more questions than answers. The search for Relisha Rudd continues over a decade later. More than 10 years later, the same heartbreak and the same failures would repeat themselves in another city. In August 2024, another young girl goes missing, 13-year-old Ja'Niyah McMichael from Gary, Indiana. And again, a familiar pattern unfolds.
Ja'Niyah was 13 years old when she went missing from Gary, Indiana, and she was initially classified as a runaway by law enforcement. So again, she didn't get that media coverage, and we jumped right in and reached out to our media partners, really just trying to pound the pavement to find out what happened to her. Her grandmother indicated that she didn't run away from home, and we believe that Ja'Niyah is critically missing.
By the time law enforcement took her case seriously, critical time had passed. The FBI is now involved, but Ja'Niyah remains missing more than a year later.
We have received a few tips. We have turned that over to law enforcement to investigate, but sadly, Ja'Niyah is now 14 years old and she's still missing. It has been over a year now since she disappeared from her home.
2 girls, 2 different cities, 10 years apart. Visibility can save lives, but only if the media chooses to see you. For the Wilsons, every platform is a potential lifeline.
Well, first, I want to commend the Black press. They have been working with us hand in hand to get these stories the visibility that they need. But we also have some big names too, like Dateline. We have been on The View a couple of times, and because of that, the show being aired, within 14 minutes, we were able to find a missing young girl. So again, that's the power of media.
Another partner that we have a segment that comes on bi-weekly on the Reels channel on Patrol Live, where we're able to take actual missing person cases and share it with OP Nation, as we call it, to help us solve these cases. And we've had great success in featuring missing person cases on the show, whether it's by reunions or providing answers to the family for those that had an outcome that none of us expected.
However, the goal isn't just to get a headline. It's to change the standard for how every missing persons case is handled.
Our local DC chapter is working with us to help us not only bring about change through the media guide, but to spotlight these cases because time is of the essence, as Derrica mentioned.
That local partnership grew into something bigger, a formal collaboration between the Black and Missing Foundation and the Washington Association of Black Journalists. Together, they launched a task force, and a national media guide designed to teach reporters how to cover missing persons of color with the dignity and attention every case deserves.
Natalie is a member of the Washington Association of Black Journalists, of which I'm the president. We are the DC, Maryland, Virginia arm of the National Association of Black Journalists. This is our 50th year as a organization. We are a chapter of over 450 journalists, students, teachers, media-related professionals. And when I became president in January, I wanted to make sure that we were more involved in advocacy efforts and in being in the community. And so Natalie had reached out to me and said, like, hey, here's this idea that we have to sort of join our two organizations, the Black and Missing Foundation and the Washington Association of Black Journalists.
The task force, made up of journalists, other media professionals, and advocates from across the country, aims to dismantle old patterns of bias from within newsrooms.
There's like a handful of people on this task force committee, and it was pretty much a collaborative effort. So everybody came together, and as we were meeting to put together the guide, we went through, decided on what would be the most important pieces to add to the guide, what should we take out, what should we remove. And we also created committees. So there were some committees who were, after we, would leave a meeting, they were like, okay, this committee is going to focus on this one thing. So maybe this committee is focused on how to reach out to families. This committee is focused on how newsrooms should ethically cover, mugshots, right? Like, should there be mugshots? So there were different committees that were broken down in that capacity too. And as far as like outreach, what's really great about the Black and Missing Foundation is that they've been doing this for a long time, right? And so that they have a lot of connections, personal connections with media outlets. And so the idea was to create this task force that will help newsrooms and reporters better understand how to cover missing persons of color.
For decades, the mainstream definition of newsworthy was shaped through a narrow lens. And Philip says that's still the biggest barrier.
At the beginning of what we consider to be the news or journalism, it's predominantly been stories crafted by white men, right? Like that's how it's been for as long as anyone can remember, right? And so what that means is a lot of coverage is colored by how white men or white people view what is deemed to be important, right? And so when we're covering these, when missing persons are being covered, usually these stories are missing white women, missing white people. That is, people in journalism view themselves as the main people, as the main characters, right? Like in the stories.
But this new media guide is changing that.
There's a section in the media guide that helps explain to people, like, here's how they connect with families, here's how to talk with families, here's the best pathways and best avenues to get these stories told.
The work of the Black and Missing Foundation and the WABJ shows what's possible when the community refuses to look away. Before social media, missing person posters were stapled to streetlights, a desperate hope that the right pair of eyes might pass by. Now, those same eyes are scrolling, sharing, and amplifying online. For the Black and Missing Foundation, that shift has been nothing short of revolutionary. For every lead they post, there is a chance someone recognizes a face, remembers a car, or rethinks a story they saw once but didn't report. Sometimes, justice begins with a single repost. But awareness isn't just about algorithms. It's also trust. And that's something Natalie and Derrica have learned must be rebuilt case by case. Every hour without coverage means fewer eyes, fewer tips, and fewer leads.
That's another thing that we're finding is that the community or law enforcement and the media believes that no one is looking for these individuals. Well, yes, they're families that love them and they're looking for them.
Every case Natalie and Derrica take on carries pain, but it also carries purpose. Because every story they tell, there's a chance to bring someone home.
Well, like you said, we help thousands of families try to get answers, and many times the answers isn't the outcome that we expected, but at least they know what happened to their loved ones.
We've seen miracles happen, and we don't want the families, we don't want the community to give up on hope. So we have to continue to shine a spotlight, because the moment that we don't, it gives the perception that the person is no longer missing. So we want to continue to amplify these stories as much as possible so we can find and bring them home, or bring answers or justice to the families, because they deserve that.
As we close out this episode, remember to follow the Black and Missing Foundation on social media and visit theblackandmissinginc.com to access the media guide, active cases, and resources. Watch The Vanishing of Relisha Rudd, a cold case re-examined, on the Foundation's YouTube channel. And most importantly, share Relisha Rudd and Ja'Niyah McMichael's stories. Your voice can help spread awareness and spark new leads in their cases. If you have any information about Relisha Rudd, contact the Metropolitan Police Department of D.C. or the FBI Washington Field Office. If you have any information about Ja'Niyah McMichael, call the Gary Police Department or the FBI tip line. You can find all of that information in the description below. Don't forget to follow Hunting for Answers for updates on these cases and others like them. Subscribe on YouTube and follow us on Instagram and TikTok for more true crime stories and case updates. Thank you so much for joining us on another episode. Until next time. Hunting for Answers is a production of the Black Effect Podcast Network. For more podcasts from the Black Effect Podcast Network, visit the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your favorite shows.